Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston Station, I'm ready for the event.
U.S. Air Force Academy, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Lieutenant Colonel Naveer Walkowitz. How do you hear me?
Hi, ma'am. I've got you loud and clear. Welcome to the International Space Station.
Lieutenant Colonel Ayers, this is such an honor. So excited. Thank you so much for the time. And I thought we'd start with a reflective question, if that's all right. Excellent. I've heard that seeing Earth from... Okay, wonderful. I've heard from seeing Earth from space forever changes your perspective. How was the experience for you, and how has it changed the way you view your role as a leader?
Yeah, I think for everybody, the experience is slightly different. For me, seeing the Earth from the Dragon window for the first time was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And then seeing the Earth every day from the cupola and then the lab window that we have here, you don't see country or state lines on the Earth, right? There's not like each state has a different solid color, right? There's just geography and just terrain. And so you get to learn the world all over again in terms of colors and textures and geography and water. There's so much water on this Earth, and it's hard to put it into perspective until you're actually looking at the Earth. And it's something that has really hit me because the Earth is so fragile. We see these beautiful auroras, we see thunderstorms, we see different natural disasters. And it's really made me want to take better care of this Earth. And, when I get home, I want to just do things a little bit better and just take that extra step to make my part in taking good care of this Earth.
That makes amazing sense. And, I think it takes us to kind of your path to becoming an astronaut. Can you walk us through what that was like?
Yeah, sure. So, I've been saying that I wanted to be an astronaut since I was a little kid. I always had an affinity for space and for the sky. And growing up in the shuttle era, as soon as I learned that you could fly the shuttle, be the pilot, I was like, ooh, that's what I want to do. And so the very serious little Nichole set my goals really high and started working towards that path. And, grew up right there in Colorado Springs, watched the Air Force Academy graduation, and the Thunderbirds fly over every year. And it just kind of seemed like a natural path for me to go to the Air Force Academy, become a pilot, and try to pursue the astronaut dream from the pilot's perspective. So, I worked really hard, set my goals really high, and never got bumped off that path, and was able to apply and actually get selected. And now here I am talking to you from the International Space Station.
And it's pretty incredible being able to see you weightless there and your hair in its full glory. It's pretty amazing. Can you talk about your time at the Air Force Academy specifically? What foundational experiences would you say have really kind of played a part with your life in space right now?
Yeah, I think the Air Force Academy for me, the biggest part was just being on teams. I played volleyball there, and, I would say every squadron is its own little team. And, as a 4-degree, you're there with all of your classmates and you're going through training sessions together. And so being on these teams in different environments and some austere environments and high pressure situations and learning how to take care of other people in those moments, I think has been huge in my path to getting here. All those words speak truth here on the International Space Station. We're in an austere environment. Sometimes we're under pressure situations, and it's just a few of us up here working together with the ground to make this International Space Station stay in orbit, to execute all of the science and the maintenance and keep it running, and continue to learn everything we possibly can, both about space and about Earth, in order to inform how we do life on Earth and how we get to the moon and Mars.
Thank you. So maybe can you share with us what your daily routine aboard the ISS is like?
Yeah, it's not unlike yours potentially. Our schedule is pretty set. The ground team figures out, what science and what maintenance needs to be done and who's going to go do it. We are scheduled from about 7:30 in the morning to 7:30 in the evening, and we get 2 to 2.5 hours of exercise time so that we can maintain our bone and muscle and cardiovascular health up here. And then when we're not working out, we're like I said, executing science. I'm surrounded just here in this module. Every single rack has some sort of payload or science experiment going on. So we just kind of follow the schedule. We work with the ground team to figure out where the things are that we need and the procedures and all of that. But it's not unlike life on Earth.
Maybe a little bit different. What's the biggest misconception people have about life on the ISS, you think? And what's something that surprised you while you're being there?
Man, I've been asked this question before. I'm not sure if I know the biggest misconception. I think that often people kind of put astronauts up on a pedestal, but we're just humans who like the work that we do. We're really passionate about what we do. We're good teammates. So we're just normal humans, and it's not the most glamorous job. We do often wear diapers, or we're working really hard, or things like that. So just normal humans up here. I think one of the things that surprised me the most, I'll see if I can do this without bumping the Astrobee off the wall here, but for me, it took my brain a while to, get used to seeing people on the wall, or, our treadmills on the wall, or seeing people upside down, and there's no up and down in space. And so it took a while for me to get used to that, and for my brain to kind of remap what I consider up, down, left, and right in space. And that people are just floating, and we get a float every day. I can let go of the mic and talk to you.
So we have a lot of cadets and young officers that listen to us. What advice would you give them in the dream of following in your footsteps?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love to preach hard work and teamwork. Find something that you really enjoy doing. NASA needs, I studied math, right? I'm a pilot, but we need doctors, we need scientists, we need engineers. So figure out what you really enjoy doing, work really hard at that thing, and then go find a team you can be on, and figure out how to take care of other people, and figure out how you mesh in this world, and how you can and thrive in these small environments or austere environments with other people. So I love to just say, work hard, be a good teammate, and everything will work out in your favor, I think.
Can you share if you've received any valuable insights or advice from other Air Force Academy grads who were astronauts?
Oh yeah, I think tons is what I would say. Eric Chell, and specifically Nick and Raja, who just recently flew and came back. I think that there's been a ton of advice just in terms of how we do life here on the International Space Station, and how we're going to continue to explore on the Moon and Mars, and how we can share our story, and how we can share all of the science that we're doing. But I think one of the most practical things that I got was from Nick during the handover, when we had a couple days up here together, and he said, don't forget you're still squishy. We're surrounded by a bunch of metal up here. Nothing is very soft. And so if you get moving too quick, or you get too confident, it's very easy to stub a toe or hit something. And so we're still just squishy humans. And, if you take that one step further metaphorically, I think, we're still just humans, and we make mistakes, and that's okay, as long as you can bounce back, and as long as you're not going too fast when you hit a handrail too hard.
Absolutely. Well, you talked a little bit about the austere environment. What do you hope your mission and your story inspiring the next generation of Academy grads, especially those who feel called to serve in bold and unconventional ways?
Yeah, I think the bold and unconventional part really hits me because, growing up during the shuttle era, and then I was at the Air Force Academy when the last shuttle flight flew. And, as you grow up and you say you want to be an astronaut, people often say, like, wow, that's awesome. And then when you become an adult, sometimes you don't quite get the same response. Sometimes you get a laugh. And so, I would say that even if people don't believe you, or they don't necessarily support what you want to do, if you've got a goal or a dream, just continue to, like I said, work hard at it. Put your nose to the grinder, get really good at whatever it is that you want to go do. And don't let the naysayers get you. There will always be someone there who thinks it's silly, but you will always find someone who supports you. My old commander, Ravid McGinn, he was the one who supported me and got me here. And he said, are you silly? Like, why would you ever think that's silly, or hesitate to tell me what you want to do? So keep talking about your goals, keep working towards it. And like I said, maybe someday you could be up here with us.
Absolutely bold and unconventional for sure. And speaking of such, space missions demand precision under pressure. Can you share a moment, whether in training or on the ISS, where quick thinking and calm leadership made a difference for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think that actually a great example is our spacewalk that Anne McLean and I did about a month and a half ago. Right in the middle of the spacewalk, the priorities changed and the game plan changed. And if you were just an onlooker watching, sitting at home watching, you may not have even noticed that. And I think that's a huge testament to our ground team and our flight director, Deanna Trujillo, for the day. Her ability to lead that ground team and change the game plan on the fly, and then get those words up to us through some comm loss and some other hardships that we were working through. And then for Anna and I to work together, both just the two of us outside the space station in the vacuum of space, but also us with the ground to make that all look very seamless. We're very proud of how that spacewalk went and our ability to kind of change the plan on the fly, execute, come up with new ways of doing things and figuring out how we're going to leave the station in a good state and also achieve all those objectives. So I think we're actually really proud of the way that we managed all of those changes, and hopefully to the onlooker like yourself, it looks seamless.
Right. Absolutely. And it kind of talks a little bit to what you said earlier about, seeing Earth from a different vantage point and wanting to protect it. I'd like to actually ask you about more about that. So, can you share from your vantage point what you've observed about humanity and the resilience as you look on it from our perspective here on Earth and you being up there?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things, I mentioned the natural disasters that we see, and I feel a sense of duty to photograph and to try to document the things that just humans endure on a daily basis. I talked about thunderstorms or landslides, forest fires, all sorts of things. We see it from such a different vantage point up here, and knowing that there are people down there who are trying to survive, and knowing that those people will survive, and that we have an entire community that's going to rally around those people in those instances, and just trying to do our part from up here and give that unique vantage point and give as much data and as much help as we possibly can. I think that's one of the biggest things that our world does well, is helping each other when we're in need.
Absolutely. And Lieutenant Colonel Ayers, maybe you can share what's been the impact of this mission on your sense of purpose, and how do you think it will shape your next chapter when you come back on Earth?
Ooh, this is a great question. I've done a lot of thinking about this. Finally achieving your childhood dream. What's next? What do you do next? And I think for me, the biggest thing that I want to continue to do is just inspire the next generation. All those little kids who say they want to be astronauts and then they get laughed at as adults. I think it's so important to just foster that curiosity and foster that sense of exploration, and really, encourage the next generation to go do what they're passionate about, because we will always need someone in that niche thing that you're passionate about. And so helping people get there is really what I want to do next, and helping the next youth get to their dreams and their goals, and continue to just build this society that continues to explore. And especially as we go to the moon and onto Mars and we commercialize low Earth orbit, I think there's so much that we can do, and I feel, again, a sense of duty to help the next generation do that.
Well, we talk about the next generation and the long blue line being enduring. Is there anything else you'd want to share with Air Force Academy grads in general?
Yeah, I think it might be a dead horse that I'm beating at this point, but the teamwork is so important. Just take care of the people around you. Make sure that you're always looking out for each other. The long blue line is a very special thing to be a part of. And like yourself, I met you a couple years ago, and it feels like I could just go, hang out with you, have dinner, and we could pick up like old friends. And that's what the long blue line is all about. Having friends all over the world who can help you. I got to hang out with Nick Hague in space, another member of the long blue line, who told me I was going to be squishy. Things like that are just the unique moments that we have as Academy grads. There's always going to be someone there who supports you and who loves you and who wants to see you be successful.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this time. There's probably so many more questions we could ask you, but I think the biggest one is just, we would leave you with, it's such an honor and a privilege to see you out there. We're proud of everything that you're doing, and we can't wait to see more of what you're able to accomplish while you're in space and when you come back.
Thank you so much. Like I said, so excited to talk to you today and to just share the experience and also, have an influence on the AOG. I'm excited that the AOG is interested in space and interested in all of us who are out here. Again, the Long Blue Line is a really cherished and unique group to be a part of. So honored and proud to be a part of that group and excited that I got to share a little bit of what we do up here with you guys today.
Thank you so much for the time.
Station, this is Houston ACR. Thank you. That concludes our event.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we're now resuming operational audio communications.